Welcome to the presentation. The topic of this presentation is content analysis of local newscasts, the cognitive transformation theory perspective. This article employed cognitive transformation theory to analyze the current status of local newscasts and comparing the quantity of local news coverage across large and small markets. The outline of the presentation includes basic introduction to contemporary media theory, cognitive transformation theory, research methodology, findings, interpretation, and conclusion. Using descriptive and inferential statistical analysis, this article confirmed that local TV news cover only a small portion of hard news, 3%, as compared with the high coverage of soft news, 97%, and there was no statistically significant difference between large market and small market in international news coverage and hard news coverage. According to the first theory, the mass media executives do not take into consideration the needs, expectations, and the demands of their audience. They choose their program content, aiming either to educate their audience or to fulfill the standards of their professional needs. The second perspective contends that many television stations or show producers do not seek ways of communicating with the audience. And instead of journalists educating, training the audience trains the journalists to become more friendly and accessible in order to achieve larger viewership rates. Cognitive transformation theory posits that material learned with one particular set of mental devices may show inconsistency with the material learned with a different mental model. Collegiate 2011 further explained that the cognitive transformation of information depends on the idiosyncratic transformative process of self-internalization through conscious and unconscious redirection and readaptation. This research provided detailed content analysis of 30 newscasts of local TV stations. The samples of 30 newscasts were collected by a group of doctoral students from June 7 to June 17, 2010. During the 11 days, each student recorded 2 newscasts at 11 p.m. from their local news TV station and carefully coded the content of newscasts for further analysis. Altogether, 30 local newscasts, including 18 from large markets and 12 from small markets, were coded based on the category of segment type, scope, and topic of the news content. 3 basic TV networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC across 5 large TV stations and 4 small TV stations were covered in the research. There are 4 research questions. Research question 1. Does local newscasts really cover local news? Or whether local TV newscasts cover more of other news content, such as regional news, national news, etc. than local news? Research question 2. Does local TV newscasts focus a smaller portion of time on hard news? Research question 3. Does smaller market stations cover less hard news than larger market stations? Research question 4. Does smaller market stations cover more local news and less international and national news than large market stations? Based on the 4 research questions, there will be 6 hypotheses altogether. Hypothesis number 1. The mean coverage of local news in local TV is significantly different from the mean coverage of regional news, national news, international news, and non-news items include promo, banter, tease, and commercial. Hypothesis 2. Local TV news covers only a small portion of hard news. To be specific, the mean coverage of hard news in local TV news station is significantly lower than the mean coverage of soft news. Hypothesis 3. The mean coverage of hard news by smaller market stations is significantly lower than the mean coverage of hard news by large market stations. Hypothesis 4. The mean coverage of local news by smaller market stations is significantly higher than the mean coverage of local news by large market stations. Hypothesis 5. The mean coverage of national news by smaller market stations is significantly lower than the mean coverage of national news by large market stations. Hypothesis 6. The mean coverage of international news by small market stations is significantly lower than the mean coverage of international news by large market stations. Reliability check. In order to check reliability, 4 coded newscasts 13% were randomly sampled, which were coded by 2 different coders based on 2 different newscasts. On one hand, Scott's Pi was conducted to test the intercoder reliability. Scott's Pi of 0.8 indicated good reliability of the coding procedure. On the other hand, the internal reliability test of Cron Batches Alpha yielded a result of 0.958, which is considered to be highly reliable, according to Communication Research Statistics, RENAT 2006. Unit of Analysis and Measurement. The general units of analysis were news items in view of segment, scope, and subject of ABC, NBC, and CBS local newscasts. Segment was subcategorized into promo, banter, tease, commercial, and story. Scope was further divided into local news, regional news, national news, and international news. The unit of measurement used length in seconds to assign numbers to news segment on the basis of a ratio level. From the statistical analysis result, we can conclude that local news did cover a large amount of local news, which is significantly higher than the mean coverage of regional news, national news, and international news. However, there is no significant difference between the mean coverage of local news and that of non-news. The implication of this result revealed that in reporting a large amount of local news, the local TV news also covered a large number of non-news content. This also answered research question 1. For answering research question 2, the two-tailed differences of proportions test, D equal to 7.023, P smaller than 0.01, indicated that the coverage of hard news in local TV news was significantly smaller than the coverage of soft news. The result fully supported hypothesis 2, that local TV news cover only a small portion of hard news, 3%, as compared with the higher coverage of soft news, 97%. In answering research question 3, the independent sample t-test result indicated that there was no statistically significant difference in mean hard news coverage between small market and large market. T equal to 0.733, DF equal to 18, P equal to 0.473. In other words, the test result rejected hypothesis 3, and it suggested no significantly different hard news coverage between large and small market. T-test 1 indicated there was no statistically significant difference between large market and small market in local news coverage. T-test 2 indicated there was no statistically significant difference between large market and small market in national news coverage. T-test 3 indicated that there was no statistically significant difference between large market and small market in international news coverage. Now, let's take a look at the limitations of the research. First of all, the main drawback is that this research did not strictly follow random sampling process, rather relying on convenient sampling of newscasts from local TV stations, and thus it has a low generalizability level. Secondly, Krippendorf's alpha should be employed in checking intercoder reliability, because this content analysis mainly contains ratio-level variables. Thirdly, in the process of operationalization of conceptual definitions, the categories and subcategories for coding and statistical analysis were designed in a subjective manner and thus accordingly decrease the external validity of the research. Conclusion. This particular content analysis aimed at investigating whether local TV news really covers more of local news or more of other news content, and how the representation of the news content accelerated the application of a new mental model to promote transformative thinking. The researcher also targeted on the question of what is the effects of cognitive transformation caused by purposeful media content and representation on the changing of behavior and attitude from the audience. It is of great importance in analyzing the current status of local newscasts and comparing the quantity of local news coverage across large and small markets. Future exploration may also seek to look beyond the quantity of news coverage and address factors such as quality, subject matter, technological integration, and the idiosyncrasy of the local news programming system as compared to national and international news market. That's all for the presentation. Thanks for your attention.